Hey everyone, my name is Alan Dick, and on behalf of my fellow co-founders, Scott Silverman and Veronica Sontsev, and the rest of the Commerce Next team, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024, and our webinar this week is 3 winning conversion strategies to boost holiday revenue. Before we go any further, I'd like to welcome and thank today's speakers. First off, we've got Matt Gehring, he's a CMO at Dutch, Celia Mulderrig, the VP of Ecommerce at Naked Cashmere, Jason Nichol, the SVP of Marketing at 10,000, Angie Mistretta, the VP of Global Demand Generation at Commerce Tools, and Toby Hellebrand, the Senior Director of Technology Strategy and Applied Digital. Thank you guys so much for being here with us today. We certainly appreciate you taking the time. We also want to thank Applied Digital for sponsoring today's broadcast. I also want to give a quick shout out to WebHub and Richard over at Applied Digital. They were big help putting this together as well. And as you know, we couldn't bring these webinars to you, our community, without the support of our sponsor partners. I also want to thank the Commerce Next staff that's with us today. That's going to be Maeve, Robert, Scott, and Veronica, who are all off screen helping to make this a success. But always, and most importantly, thank you to you, the audience, for taking the time to join us today. All right, let's do a little housekeeping here. Our next webinar takes place in 2 weeks on Wednesday, September 25th. I'll be hosting that one as well. And the topic will be maximizing loyalty, strategies and technologies for holiday 2024 and beyond. That's going to feature John Kossoff. He's the CDO over at Tilly's. Travis Garcia, the VP of e-commerce at Pretty Litter. Renee Halverson, the CMO at Marine Layer. And Tarek Muller, the co-founder and managing director of About You. You can register for this webinar by checking out that link that Maeve just put into the chat tab. Is it ever too early to register for the Commerce Next Growth Summit? Of course it isn't. Do you like standing in line? On-site registration at the Commerce Next Growth Summit? No, of course not. Well, you can take care of both of these issues at the same time by registering now and snagging a limited time benefit of the Fast Pass registration. What does that mean? It means you get in quick. You can learn more about that and our 2025 Growth Show by clicking on the link in the chat. Of course, if you've missed any of our past events or you want to check out some of the videos from our summit over the summer, we have over 500 videos now covering topics including acquisition, retention, leadership, retail technology, and so much more. It's a great resource. Just head on over to our channel and check it out. Of course, we're recording this webinar, and we're going to be releasing that video a little bit later on tonight. But now let's take a moment to remind everyone where to find the tools you need in order to make this webinar a success for you. There are 4 tabs in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. There's chat, Q&A, polls, and handouts. Use the chat tab when you want to communicate with other attendees or offer a shout out to the speakers. The polls tab is where you can participate in the audience polls and review the final results after we close the polling. And the handouts tab is where we'll have today's presentation and other useful information available for you to download. However, the most important tool at your disposal is the Q&A tab. This is your steering wheel. This is allowing you to drive the conversation by offering your questions directly to the speakers. Remember, the only bad question is the one that was never asked. To encourage you to ask questions, Celia has graciously offered the Cashmere home set to one lucky live webinar attendee whose question is selected for the panel. This luxurious $375 set includes a 100% pure cashmere eye mask, a large lightweight throw, and a silk-lined drawstring bag. The giveaway is available to qualifying participants in the US and Canada. Now, I'm going to randomly select one of the questions we used after the webinar and email the winner with all the details. So good luck, everyone, and don't forget to ask your questions. Remember, even if you don't have a specific question, you can upvote other audience questions. This really helps us prioritize which ones to present to the panel and lets us know what's most important to you. And lastly, if you're watching this on the replay, please note that the handouts are available by clicking on the highlighted document icon in the video player, and the audience poll question results will be available in the polls tab. And with that, let's bring up Toby Hellebrand. Again, he's the Senior Director of Technology Strategy at Applied Digital. Toby, it's great to have you back from your epic tour de force of a webinar that you did with us in the spring. Whose handout I have put back into the handouts here because I thought it was so good. I'll talk more about that in a little while. How are you doing today? No, I'm just going to set you up. I'm going to make it impossible for you to to do this. How are you doing, man?
Really good. Thanks for having me, Alan.
Absolutely. I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. So, hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here today. So there's 3 key topics that Alan has queued up for today's webinar, and I'm actually going to just slim it down to 2 for my 10-minute kickoff presentation, because frankly, there's too much to cover, at least in depth. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is personalization and operational readiness. So a bit about me first. My name is Toby Helbron. I'm the Senior Director of Technology Strategy at Applied Digital. I have 16 years of experience as a digital commerce practitioner. And at Applied Digital, we are a high-touch, strategy-led systems integrator. We do work around the world. There are the 8 offices highlighted on the screen, and we work primarily with change agents. So why are we here today? If your revenue and user session graphs for the year looks something like this, then this material is for you. So what we see here are 2 very high shoulders representing Black Friday, Cyber Monday on the left for the orange, and then the Boxing Week period on the right. And then you may have a few other revenue events throughout the year, but generally speaking, there's a lot of focus, there's a lot of importance and energy towards what we're barreling down the tracks for. So really, there's a lot of excitement, and usually people, actual e-commerce practitioners, wind up in war rooms that look like this. You have a very excited executive who's probably brought in pizza and beer, and you're in a fluorescent lit room, and everybody's doing their best to also be excited. But really what they're thinking is, why am I here? Maybe we should have done more planning so that a war room wasn't actually a thing at all. Nobody wants to have that stress, the last minute changes in the firefighting that historically comes coupled with war room scenarios, or at least thinking they're a necessity. But while you're there, there's an argument for why they are actually highly inefficient, highly stressful, and you have a much higher potential for errors if you feel like everybody's looking on your shoulder and you can feel that extra pressure when things go astray. So really, the question that we have in front of us is there a more strategic, less reactive approach to holiday readiness? And my hypothesis is that the answer is yes. So we're going to break it down a little bit. I'm going to try to get really practical with you, so you've got things to actually put into action in your own business context. So first thing on the personalization side is understand your seasonal nuances. As a retailer, you know your business better than I would, but some things should hold true. Number 1, define your KPIs. During holiday, you may not have the same evergreen KPIs that are most important to you during this period. So for example, if you have a certain persona that is new to your brand, you may want to steer them towards longer dwell time on content pages, as an example. The second thing is analyze your historical performance. Look at last year's data. Look at your trend year over year. Look at where things went well and also where things did not go so well. Ideally, you'd have those retros for the holiday season done immediately after them so that everybody's got that data fresh of mind. But at the very least, you're looking back 1 year in time and bringing those lessons learned forward. And the last thing might be a little controversial is consider where you may have a saturation point for sale messaging for your customers. If a customer has made 1, 2, 3 purchases during this critical period, maybe after their third, if they're still coming back, they're not actually interested in additional sale. So there's other ways to convert them. Focus on primary audiences. Here are 3. They're not meant to be prescriptive for your business context, but these are 3 to put on the table that are specific to this time of year. The gifter with low intent, the researcher who has medium purchasing intent, and then the big spender who's got high intent. So these bullet points, this will be something you can freeze your frame for in the playback, but these bullet points are really the strategies for each primary audience, and then down below are some specific tactics. So for example, the gifter, you may want to show your sale hero banner on the homepage. You may want to have PLP grid interrupters, like inset assets, that actually get in the way of the flow of your product result page to actually inject a message specific for them. For the researcher, some tactics you may want to use are user-generated reviews, so that's social proof. Low inventory warnings, like hurry up, only 1 left in stock kind of thing. Countdown clocks, which you can splatter anywhere on the site you want. And communicating brand awareness and your unique service proposition. For big spenders, you may want to talk about personalized product recommendations, a gamified gift finder, a progress bar for a gift with purchase, and encourage wish list building. So you're trying to get people on the site early to engage. And also you can give sneak peeks to what they're actually building up. Okay, the next slide here, brainstorming use cases by your prioritized audiences, however you define them, and the steps of the funnel. This is obviously a placeholder, but just trying to get people to realize that they need to have a plan in place, defined well in advance. So define your placements, and then for each audience, what you want the KPI to be with those placements. And obviously you could make this even more complicated by having A/B or ABN tests. Next, you want to consider the scheduling of each campaign so that they're not all colliding at the same time. That's not just a consideration for the users on your site, but it's also a consideration for your team. You don't want to necessarily have too many things going on at the same time. You want to focus on keeping your business users in a cool state. Okay, so flipping on to the operational readiness. You want to be sure, again, well in advance, that your resources, the actual infrastructure for the site, is optimized to perform when it's game time. So the first consideration here is load tests or stress tests. There are some fantastic tools out there like JMeter or K6. If you talk to your tech side of the house, you can even run scripts through Insomnia or Postman to simulate that stuff if licensing costs are a consideration at this time of year. The second point is optimizing the queries to your backend systems. Again, you need to test this to ensure that all low-hanging fruit is taken care of so everybody can stay cool during game time. And then the last point here are backups. Have system backups. Make sure that if production goes down, you can always flip back to something, and you've got these failover systems in place that if you need to enact them in a totally terrible situation, they're at least ready for you to turn that key. In terms of preparing back-end processes, back-end also means in terms of the operations, the people side. So work with your shipping carriers to ensure that your estimated delivery date expectations, as they change on the carrier side, as they inevitably do, the closer you get to Boxing Day itself, that the communications on your site and through your customer care team and through email communications is in lockstep with that. You also want to be sure that your BOPIS, buy online, pickup in store, or ship to home or curbside pickup expectations, as they change, are reflected to the customer. You don't want to let customers down because their expectations are the highest right now. The second thing here is inventory and price checks. Make sure that you're not overselling your inventory. If you have to do nightly wipe and replaces, or that you actually have the mechanism to check in terms of like a pop quiz, like at a moment's notice, you want to check that the inventory position in your warehouse actually matches what's exposed online. You need to be able to do that. This is a very highly sensitive data point. And same with prices. You never want to be that business where somebody posts to Reddit saying, hey, I just got this $1,000 fridge for $1 because of some gaffe that the retailer made. And then the last point here is allocation rebalancing. This has everything to do with how the order and shipments are fulfilled. You want to be sure that you're monitoring very closely that each fill site's fill rate is maximized so that all orders that are allocated to a given location are actually being shipped out to expectation. Rapid response techniques. You need to have real-time monitoring. There's, again, lots of really good tools, Datadog, whatever. There's many other options out there to ensure that you have your eyes on the system so that if an executive comes asking about a health check, you have the answer at the ready. You don't have to go and figure out how you'll actually get that answer. Automated alerts are very important. Set the thresholds for when alerts go out and make sure that you're communicating what next steps are and what the expectations are from that communication. Even something as simple as flagging the communication as either it's an info level warning, an info level alert, a warning, something that's approaching the red zone, or an actual error, something that requires action. And then the last thing on this slide is defining roles and communications. So the communications to your stakeholders is of utmost importance. People just need to know, it's almost like a pulse check. They need to know that people are watching for things. So in terms of the roles, again, there's many good tools out there like Atlassian OpsGenie or PagerDuty is another common one, but have fixed roles like the quarterback, the person who oversees the response strategy, the communications person, the person who informs the stakeholders, and also the fixers, who's doing what by when, and ensure that you have good custody of the issue. So if someone passes it to somebody else, say in an escalation context, you need to know that the escalation contact has that issue. And I think this is the last slide here in terms of the operational side, from planning to execution. So clearly define to the business what a certain issue is and in terms of the priorities as you define them. Ideally get buy-in from the business before you actually go into holiday. But here's my actual working examples. If people want to take this, by all means. The definition of a blocker issue versus critical to major. So blocker is actually the critical path of accepting money from a customer is blocked, and then critical goes down from there. Same thing with service level agreements. Define in high granularity how long it takes to triage an issue, how long it takes to do advanced diagnosis, get a fix into your non-production environment, and then deploy a fix to your production environment. And then the last point here is define in advance what code freeze means. Technology is getting better and better and better, where it doesn't have to be that the tech side of the house sounds cavalier if they're willing to say, we don't do code freeze anymore. We deploy changes to our production site 365. That's cool. You're in a good place. But if you're not there, consider how you might get towards that position. So as an example, you may want to create a delineation such that during code freeze, let's say the 6 weeks surrounding Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the end of December, you could say any elective change not on the critical path, we'll deploy that to production. Similarly, any non-elective, like an actual hotfix issue that's on the critical path to making a sale, you'll fix that. So you can work through that. So in recap, I just want to state that plan. All the planning you put in pays dividends when you're actually in the hot seats, when it's actually showtime. The more you invest, the better the outcome will be. And ideally, another thing to stress is be compassionate on your teams. Not putting people under pressure is another key win. As long as people feel like they're working together as a team, keeping morale up, that's a big win for the business as well. Nobody wants to feel burnt out by holiday. So I wish everyone the best of success this holiday season, and I'll pass it back to Alan.
All right, Toby, hang on with me here for just a second. So, Rob, you can pull the instant poll time off. It's just going to be Toby and I for a minute. So I did make a brief reference to the handout that you gave us earlier in the year about how to pitch composable commerce to the C-suite. Now, that may not seem relevant to this conversation, but I thought there was a broader theme you hit in there about how the different executives in the C-suite are thinking about their business and thinking about how they interrelate with each other. And I thought that really any situation can use better and improved communication with the C-suite. Did you want to take just a second and talk about that? I know you finished a little early here, and I wanted to tee that up because our attendees might look at that handout and go, this is not about composable commerce, but that's really not what that handout's about. It's really about making the case. You want to comment on that quick?
Sure. I think that a bit of a subtle message there is, look, I come from a technology background in terms of like in broad brushstrokes, if you divide a business from the tech side to the business side, my history is more from the tech side. For technologists to get excited by technology, that's a low bar, right? Of course they will. Working to get your CTO or CIO excited about some tech change, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. But to actually speak the language of business, to speak the language of what it means to operate a business day to day, like for the COO or what it means to speak in the language of money if you're talking to the CFO. That's what's really the most important thing for technologists to get buy-in from the business. So that was really the whole intention of that presentation, is to say, if you're just focused on the technology, that's not the right thing. Like, start there, like vet it yourself. If you're excited about composable, cool. Even if you're reading about that stuff to get inspired by how you could better leverage your existing tech that may not be composable, cool. Use that, but be clever about it. But if you're looking for buy-in for significant things, you're going to have to be empathetic to your audience. And every member of that C-suite has their own interests, and you need to get into their mind, essentially get in front of the arguments. So that was the whole intention, really, is technologists speaking the language of business.
All right. So the questions are starting to come in. Jason, thank you for that. I'll get to that question if I can. Toby, thank you for that quick take. I'm going to have Rob pull you off. And Rob, if you bring up the slides again, let's move into instant polls. Now, before we do that, just want to also say I can see some of the people that are on here. I see Doug and Samantha and Theo and Sasha and a whole bunch of other folks that are good friends of the Commerce Next community. Great having you on board here. All right, let's move into the polling questions. Question number 1. Which aspects of conversion optimization do you think will have the greatest impact on your holiday sales? And you can choose up to 2. This is where we get everyone involved here. Question 1. Which aspects of conversion optimization do you think will have the greatest impact on your holiday sales? And you can choose up to 2. Is it personalized customer experiences? Is it site speed improvements? How about mobile optimization? Streamlined checkout process? Or operational readiness for handling the surge? All right, let's see what's coming in here. Personalized customer experiences, 34%. Our next biggest is streamlining the checkout processes. And that, let's see what the third one is. Third one was mobile optimization as the third. All right, very good. We can close that one out. And let's move to our next question. Question number 2. How prepared is your business to handle the unexpected technical issues during the holiday shopping surge? Are you very prepared, somewhat prepared, not very prepared, or not prepared at all? So it looks like the bulk of people are either somewhat prepared at 54% or very prepared at 38%. The not very prepared or not prepared at all coming in at 8%. Thank you for having the bravery to admit that. We won't reveal who you are. So that's very good. Veronica, if you'd be so kind as to close that poll. And our next one, our final question is going to reference our September 25th webinar. That's going to be maximizing loyalty, strategies and technologies for holiday 2024 and beyond. And that panel wants to know, which business tools do you find most valuable for managing and improving customer loyalty? And you can choose up to 3. Which business tools do you find most valuable for managing and improving customer loyalty? Is it your CRM system, your loyalty program platform? How about your data analytics tools, email software, social media engagement tools, or is it something else? And that would be very useful. If it is something else, drop it in the chat. This will form some of the basis of the discussion I have with those speakers in advance, and you'll actually get to help shape what we address. So again, the question is, which business tools do you find most valuable for managing and improving customer loyalty? Is it your CRM system? Is it your loyalty program platform? How about the data analytics tools? Email marketing software is your 4th choice. Social media engagement tools, or is it something else? Let's take a look here. Give it a moment. All right. So it looks like CRM system, fairly predictably coming in at 26%. Loyalty program platform, clearly that's going to be at 26%. Those are your leaders. Data analytics tools are right behind it at 25%. Email marketing software is at 14%. Social media engagement tools are at 7%. Alrighty, I think we are done with our polls. Veronica, thank you for taking care of that and getting that done. We can close those out. And now let us move forward with our panel. I see Toby. I see the one and only Jason Nickel, Matt Gehring,
Sup, Alan?
Andrew. Hey, Celia, how you doing? It
Good.
is great to see everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. All right, let's just dive right into it here. Let's start with introductions for everyone that hasn't been introduced so far. Celia, I'm going to have you go first since you were so gracious to donate that $400 set of Cashmere for people asking questions. That was very nice of you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I work for Naked Cashmere, so we're a sustainably sourced cashmere company based out of Santa Monica, predominantly online D2C with a store in LA, a store in Aspen, and one coming in New York. Prior to this was with Lunia, Tough Mudder, Marks and Spencer, so have been in the e-commerce and optimization space for quite a while, and yeah, really looking forward to being here today.
Fantastic. Angie, I'm going to have you go next.
Hi, thanks, Alan. Thank you for letting me be here today. I'm Angie Mistretta, and I'm with Commerce Tools. And Commerce Tools provides the leading composable commerce platform. And we give companies all the components required to build and run exceptional shopping experiences, which is going to be a big topic of discussion, obviously, today. Every day, we are processing over 20,000 orders per minute for over 500 enterprise customers across a number of different industries. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well. Matt, you're next.
I'm Matt Gehring, CMO of Dutch. We're a pet telemedicine company. So essentially you can, for pet parents out there, you can connect with one of our vets across the US where we can provide treatments, write prescriptions, and fill them. Prior to Dutch, I was with Everlane, been with Rothy's, but been in e-commerce for 20 plus years.
All right, outstanding. And last but certainly not least, Jason the Hammer Nickel. How you doing, sir?
I'm just dandy. Thank you,
I
Alan
didn't
Dick.
think I did that, but I did. Yeah, I did.
Just dandy. Love you too. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Nickel. I'm the SVP of marketing over here at 10,000. We're a men's athletic apparel company, primarily DTC. Think of us as like purpose-built kits for our community to get out there and be better than yesterday. And I've been in the startup space for a little bit, Amazon, and then a part of the Commerce Next family here for a while, Alan.
Quite some time. Quite
a few free meals. So that's really why I'm here today.
Yeah, because we feed you well. Yeah, that's good to know.
All
right. So we have a lot to get through here. So let's just jump right in. I see some of the questions are coming in from the audience. We'll definitely get to those. But I want to begin by taking a look at the role that content plays in your personalization efforts. For instance, how do you ensure that it resonates with customer at different stages of the shopping journey? Matt, I think I'm actually going to start with you, and then I'm going to move over to Angie.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think as much as you can make things contextualize and resonate with that consumer, one thing we had been talking about further is sort of like where it fits within your brand ethos. And some of my past experience at like Rothy's and Everlane, where sustainability was really important. It was something that was a core tenet of the brand, but we really looked at it from how it moves the needle and whether or not it needs to play like a primary, secondary, tertiary role. And one of the things that we found there was, while it was really what the brand was founded on both brands really, it came down to being a little bit more of a nice to have things that help the customer feel good about, but it wasn't something, especially during holiday season, that we would lean into more. And so for us, it actually kind of would go up and down in terms of where we'd push that.
Okay, Angie, I know you had some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think we look at and hear from our customers that content is really king. We need to consider it at every touch point during that shopping experience and shopping journey, from how you're going about initially acquiring the customer and then getting them and as they're progressing through their shopping experience. And being able to personalize that content, create more stickiness with that customer, give them a better buying experience, and ultimately drive higher conversion for your business. So I think the more personalized you can make that whole experience with all of the different types of content that they're interacting with through their journey, the better.
Sounds good. Toby, I know you got a point of view on this, particularly around BDPs.
Yeah. So in general, I think it's most important to be aware of the customer's need states at the point that they are in the conversion funnel. So for example, a PRP would be a very different need states than a PDP. So on the PDP, really at that point, you've got them down funnel. You need to just increase the confidence as high as you can so that they're actually going to click that add to cart button. But on a PRP, let's say there's just too many result sets to be meaningful for the customer to click quickly through to a PDP, you need to just be aware of that need state and make it as easy as possible. Obviously, there's a lot of tactics that fit into that kind of space, but just being empathetic to the customer at the context, at the point that they're in.
All right, Jason, anything to add here? Or is this more of an amen? I'm agreeing with everything that's being said.
Amen, brother.
Amen, brother. Celia, I know you see, I made it easy on you. Celia, I know you had some thoughts on this. This is how we roll. This is, you guys don't have to deal with this once, but my co-founders and employees, this is constant with them. You know what I mean? You're only tortured for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I agree that we need to reinforce the messaging throughout the customer journey, but I think the customer journey is very different at the moment. So quite often what we see is the first touch point a customer will have on our website is the PDP. And so with a lot of customers landing on the PDP, we're testing and trying to make sure that we have the right amount of brand messaging. So again, trying to validate, like, what are the key messages that are relevant to them when they get to that place? Is it messaging around sustainability? Is it messaging around fit? Like, what are the key messages that they would need to have the confidence to add to cart and to complete that checkout? And we had to talk about this before, but the analogy I use is that it's a little bit like your customer has walked directly into your fitting room. And if that is their first touch point in your store, do they know who you are as a brand? Do they know what you stand for? And do they have the confidence to really check out? And I think this analogy, I think, is often very useful when you're working with a leadership team or senior stakeholders that have a background in retail or are familiar with like a shop floor concept, that the homepage is not always going to be part of that user journey. And so they need to be able to get the relevant information no matter where they started on the platform.
I used it today, Celia. I used it today. It worked. I was going to tell you in chat. It was perfect. And I used Monolith from Toby yesterday. You mentioned that. It's just like anyway, it was funny enough. We were talking about this very subject this morning. I'm actually skipping part of a holiday strategy meeting right now just to hang here.
You're learning more.
Alan, if I could add to, sorry, Jason.
Jump in.
No, go ahead, Matt.
I think Celia mentioned two things that I really like. One is the customer journey and thinking about where that customer, and one of the things that we do on the creative side when we're reviewing something, even if it's like, hey, we're looking at a PDP and some new promo module within it, we will still walk the team through from how that customer came to the site, what their interactions were, and think about like how that applies. So I found it really, it's like for us for PDPs, when people are searching for a product, having that in there of like, okay, they searched for this. Here's the SERP on Google that they saw. Here's our ad unit. Then they click through that. And so like getting whoever's reviewing the creative in that mindset of like, what is this customer looking at? I found has been super helpful to make sure that you're making changes for the sort of use case you're trying to optimize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to jump on this before we move on to data? Going once, going twice. All right, we're moving to data. So my third question, and we're going to fold in one of the audience questions on this, is what I want to know is, what data do you use and how are you leveraging it to create personalized experiences? And I guess a second question of that is, what impact has this had on conversion rates during those high traffic periods like the holidays or anywhere else in the year where you see a special surge? Matt, why don't we start with you?
I think on the last part, it is very specific to holiday, and I would say even specific to holiday types. One of the things that I've noticed for brands that might have been more, like female focused, that can potentially change during holiday. And so thinking through like those last minute shoppers tend to be men, tend to be like, okay, what can I get quickly? And so making sure that you're looking at that data and looking at conversion specific to like that time in the holiday. And then the other thing that I like to see is like, having alerts set up so that you can understand, all right, we're seeing something new here and quickly get to that. So if you see conversion increase, did your traffic change? Did something else happen while you're seeing that like surge during holidays?
Mm-hmm. Celia, I know you had some thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Matt said is correct. We've seen that too, that segmenting of customers, and we've run segments to male audiences in the past with, I kid you not, this is for a women's wear brand, but the gifting focus of the ad, the title just said, "Don't fuck this up." So we gave them a list of products and incredibly high return on that. So I think knowing those segments and building strategies off of it. Similarly, at the moment, we're running a test for our high value 1 to 2 time customers. So we are working with our CDP and are building personalized emails. So supported by AI, allowing us to send personalized emails to those first time purchasers to try and increase the frequency of purchase, get them to repurchase again, and then quickly resolve any issues they may have to reduce churn. So in the build up to holiday, we're really looking at what can we do for different customer segments and how can we make sure that they're fully locked in time for holiday. So it's a bit of pre-planning before the actual craziness of Black Friday season.
Toby, did you want to jump in and talk about working with known customer preferences?
Yeah. So what I wanted to jump in and say is gather zero-party data from your customers, store it, and then let them use it during the shopping journey. So for example, if I am on a PRP, again, give me the option to filter down that result set just with one click, where I could say, yep, apply my size, apply my style preferences, apply my favorite brands, and apply the store or closest stores to where I am physically close to, right? So make it easy for the customer to apply their preferences and actually show them the value of them giving you that data.
Angie, anything to add to that before we start turning to some of the customer audience member questions? Or is that a amen and we move on?
It's an amen, but I wanted to call out Toby's chart that he showed up front where he had the different, the grid. I think that was a really helpful tool that a lot of people could use in defining these scenarios and what that journey would look like.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought that was really well done. All right, let's turn to the audience. Jason Yen is asking, for organizations who don't have historical data to leverage for planning their scalability, any tips on how to go about defining this? Again, it's for organizations who don't have historical data to leverage for planning their scalability. Do you have any tips on how to go about defining this? That's a jump ball. All right, Toby, you're in.
If you don't have historical data, this might be a little dramatic, but bear with me. Replicate your production sites and all of its infrastructure and try to break it. So what you need to do is throw as much traffic at it. You need to literally stress the site because it's one thing to believe that your site is going to perform, but to actually validate that, that's worth its weight in gold, so that when you're actually, again, in showtime, during game time, you know exactly where your site is going to start to get a little shaky. So figure that out.
Anyone else want to jump on that one?
Was it scalability in site traffic? We think that Jason was going after, or was it like scalability and meta ad performance conversion, dealing with more customers? I was just curious.
Yeah, it's not clear from the question. Why don't you give us your angle? Take the one you think is most relevant.
I was just thinking of from a scalability perspective, if you're trying to figure out how to just generally forecast a holiday and you don't have that historical data, you can try to find norms within your vertical, like what your model might suggest holiday sales and like your revenue will be back into orders. And then you can start to think about where those traffic sources are coming from, new versus repeat, and what channels they're coming from, to help you back into, like what Toby is saying, like what places should I focus my attention on, testing and prepping in advance, what segments I might want to create, like Celia was mentioning. And you can kind of try to anchor around that. It's always hard, obviously. And holiday is such a tricky beast depending on on what you're selling, because the customer can be very different this time of year, right?
Jason, I'd add on to like leverage your partners. Like if you're working with Google with an agency, what have they seen? Like a lot of times they'll feed out, because one of the misnomers, and I've been at a lot of startups where I've had no data, no clue what seasonality is going to be, is just what are those norms? Looking at Google Trends, but also remember that competition increases. So it might be like, oh, Google 50% more people are going to be searching. Yes, but like everyone is going to be trying to get those customers. So a lot of times, and actually I've seen in the pet space, we don't really see as much lift November, December, because yes, people love their pets. They want to spend on them. Those dollars are going elsewhere. So at Dutch, and I've seen it past brands, not Rothy's and Everlane, but other brands where holiday is not as much of a peak time. So I think for all of us here who, are likely here because holiday is peak, making sure that you're taking into effect that, CPCs are going to be higher, conversion should be higher, but a lot of those things balance out. So it's not just a simple of like, oh, we should get double the traffic, therefore we're going to get double the sales.
I remember working at Vintage Tub and Bath, and when we would sell cast iron clawfoot tubs, and I was always disappointed that people never gave a 450-pound cast iron clawfoot tub as the perfect holiday stocking stuffer. But they did give curved shower rods. So, my recommendation is always look for the unexpected in your line. I never thought that business would ever be holiday driven, but man, we cleared out curved shower rods. Sorry, just had to toss that in there. All right. So, let's go to the next audience question. This is from Kat Singh. She or he is asking, how can we effectively persuade the business and leadership to reconsider implementing a code freeze during the holiday period? That's interesting. How can we effectively persuade them to re-implement a code freeze? Toby, you talked about code freeze. Do you want to tackle that seemingly impossible question?
Sure. This is a sensitive one in the sense that it comes down to the interpersonal dynamics and trust between leadership and those who are presumably more on the operator, like in the trenches, asking this question, saying like, we want to have our site frozen during the holiday period. They want to implement a code freeze. I think part of that is trying to make it clear why you feel that way. If you can't win outright, establish some middle ground. So again, like not to say that my model needs to be adopted verbatim, but to say certain things can be allowed during code freeze, but not all things, right? And optionally, if you want to play the strong card, you could say that the decision should be by those who are actually doing the work. Meaning if they know the system best, sometimes it's hard to articulate exactly why. It just comes down to confidence. So just stuff to think about. Not to say like a perfect answer, but some things to help you work through it.
Yep, absolutely. Matt, you had some thoughts on that.
Toby hit on it. The use cases of like, okay, what is still going to be like, to me, 20 years of doing this, there's always been code freezes. It's never been like the site will not change for, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 12 weeks. There's always scenarios. And I think the other key part is where does testing fit in, which I think we're going to get into a little bit later, but like testing to me should always be happening. So I think set up, what does code freeze mean? What are the places where we're going to pivot from that? And then how do we adjust? And I love the idea of like, okay, what do the people actually doing the work, feel from a confidence level? Because the worst thing is like you make a change, then all of a sudden numbers don't look the same. And you're like, oh, was it the change? Was it something else? And then it just turns into a fire drill.
I feel like risk is the biggest thing. Like, do you really want to, do you really want to take the risk?
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, yes, you might get this incremental little uplift from whatever the thing is, but are you going to risk the whole, something happening at your biggest time of year?
Yeah.
Like that's always been the case that we've made.
That's
like,
what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. That and the only thing that helps is I if you're having the conversation with leadership, I usually I lead with bourbon. Yeah, and then
always wise. Bourbon makes us a lot of things better.
Yeah. It's
like Steely Dan. You can play
Steely Dan anytime. God,
it's anytime.
Opening song for these webinars. Anyway,
I know we should.
You guys are aging yourselves.
Right.
I am a man of a certain age, and I am proud of it.
Steely Dan is timeless, my friend. I mean, timeless. Come on, man. There, right.
I wasn't thinking. All right. So this is how it goes. All right. So next question is going to be around testing. Definitely an important topic. It certainly came up repeatedly during our prep call, and it is the focus of this week's retailer video question. Here's Justin Emig. He's the VP of e-commerce and digital at Artisan Lane Furniture Collective with his question. Rob, would you play it?
Hello, I'm Justin Emig, VP of e-commerce, Artisan Lane Furniture Collective. And my question is, how are you scaling your CRO incrementality tests without negatively impacting site experience and UX to ensure frictionless checkout during peak seasonality?
Great question. I know Justin's in the audience. I want to personally thank him for recording that for us. I am going to include you as one of the people eligible for it because that is a fair question. And so I will let that one open up. Who wants to take that one?
If I can jump in, I mean, I think that we were talking about this in a group I'm in, and using the sales times before Black Friday to test any concepts that you have, test out and stress test the messaging. Toby, you mentioned countdown clocks. Like if there's any kind of additional functionality you're going to bring in, be it technical or marketing messaging or A/B tests, best to do it in October. We've got Prime Day coming at some point, which is impacting more retailers. I'm sure a lot of people will have some kind of a promotional moment before Black Friday. So really use that to try and test out your strategies so that you've got the winning formula for you for Black Friday.
Who else wants to jump in on this? Matt, got a thought on this?
I mean, I think testing is key during holiday. One, I think there's incremental gains you can make. I think there's also a different customer mix, which we kind of talked about, that might be different than your regular traffic. And so to me, it's like about learning in season and then also how you can apply that for future months. I think in terms of scaling, like a lot of times you'll focus maybe more on landing page testing and on that first page and trying to get them moving forward versus something where you're trying to do a complicated test that goes across multiple pages and things like that. So I think isolate and kind of what was noted around know what you're going to do going into it, going into holiday. Don't like, hey, let's try some new thing that we never tried before. That gets into almost like our past, like, code freeze question.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else want a piece of this question? We got lots of audience questions coming in.
Sure. I'll just quick. I'd say going back to the code freeze piece, we actually try to bifurcate and keep the messaging at landing page, conversion rate, optimization testing from now through as close as we can get to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and that kickoff period for us, and then really confine any tech stack updates, anything crazy that might actually break the site to October. Like launch it, test it.
Yep.
If it breaks, it breaks. It's not the worst thing in the entire world, and we definitely don't do those specific tests in the holiday period. We hold back.
All right, excellent. Moving right along, this is from Olga Verbetska. I hope I pronounced that correctly. What marketing channels or combination of channels do you find most impactful for converting customers during holiday? What marketing channels or combination of channels do you find most impactful for converting customers during the holiday? Who wants that one?
I mean,
Stun the silence.
Like I think we're like all channels.
All
channels.
all the time.
I mean, I will say just really quickly, like retargeting, remarketing,
Mhm.
and being able to score those customers. So like not every visit is equal. Finding those people, whether it's taking your customer list versus prospects, but then like having ways to say like, okay, this person shows more intent, we think is maybe a future high value customer. Let's push more to retarget. So like make sure those mechanics and everything is in place.
Yeah. Email.
We're also leaning into, I mean, in terms of like, yes, SMS for anything urgent, sale wise, like, but we're leaning.
Oh no, I think we're losing Celia there. And I give her a second. Jason, any thoughts on your side?
Funny enough, an interesting channel that we've been testing that we're going to keep in the mix is post-pilot. So it's essentially your retargeting print, and we're excited. Yeah, interesting. We're going to kick it off. We're going to see what happens during the holiday period, given that we're running some longer gift with purchases events. But interested to try that. But yeah, just what Matt said, what Celia said. Before you got stuck, Celia, you got stuck.
Drew's very compelling in his pitch for that.
Yes. Oh, okay. Isn't it? Yeah.
To be honest, I think like a non-answer in a sense, but it's the truth, is you have to figure out what works for your business, because every business is different, right? Like your customers habituate different channels than my customers, right? So I just don't think there's like a one size fits all solution. I don't hear that in this room, but to the person asking the question, there is a sense of like, you need to figure out what works for you.
I was going to ask, can I interject a question to the retailers on the call about like social channels? Because we're hearing a lot about an increase in higher conversions even on social channels. So are you all experiencing that?
I don't know.
No. Yeah.
No.
Certainly seeing higher CPMs, and there's been quite a bit of talk, right, of the changes to the algorithm and the mix and the ad serving over the last few weeks. But it would be hard to say that distinctly because of some of the creative testing that we're doing recently. But no, I had the same vibe as Celia, like, right?
No,
I know it costs more right now.
Yeah, it gets more and more expensive, and I would say social channels are starting to fall more into that camp of being awareness drivers and like reaching new customers versus a conversion tool, which isn't great because they used to be amazing. So, but I think when you do find, like, we're working a lot with influencers and as more of a direct sales funnel, and that is working really well. So, and again, that's apparel and that's like luxury apparel. So Toby, to your point, like it's very business dependent. And what works really well for one vertical may not work very well for another.
And I would add on, just during holiday, test it. If you have bandwidth to try it, get the data point, and then in January, you guys can kind of look at it and see like, okay, how did that work? So that when next holiday comes up, you know, like, oh, this actually worked really well. Let's lean in a little bit more to it.
Right.
I will just add too, like the strategy and the approach that that we and I think a lot of retailers are taking is like use September, October to really drive awareness of your brand. You won't hurt then, but if you can capture that first party data, if you can explain to them over time like why they should buy that product, accept that you might have lower conversion rates, but then during those like key sales moments, really like close the deal with SMS or with email or with like any of the own channels, like. I mean, that's a strategy that's worked really well.
All right, excellent. We got lots more questions. I'm just going to barrel in through them. This one was one I wanted to ask. This was one of the questions a little bit lower down on our list. But the question is there such a thing as too much outreach during Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Are consumers expecting to see 1 or 2 emails a day from a particular brand with offers and promotions? You know, when does it stop being the edge and, you know, start being the cliff? You know, when's too much? Jason,
No. More's more.
More's more. It's really tough. It's a tough question to ask and answer, right? Because I think we all know how busy those inboxes can get and how inundated they are during that time of year. So there certainly is a school of thought that, I mean, sending 1 or 2 a day, right? Doubling up as someone's scrolling through their promo tab in Gmail, right? Is you have a higher likelihood of maybe getting that person to open that email or at least read the subject line and open a new tab in their browser and you know, start browsing, right? So we certainly lean into that particular theory, though I would offer digging far more carefully into using frequency and recency to segment, as Celia was mentioning, as Matt was mentioning, so that we can more personalize this messaging this year so that it is filled with content when we think content might be the thing, or promo forward when we think that save 25% off this weekend only is the right move. But needless to say, from a quantity standpoint, 1 to 2 a day, not 3. 3 feels aggressive.
It's a bit much. It's a bit much.
The other thing with that is be careful with any of your, like if you're using automated abandoned cart and things like that, to look at the whole ecosystem of emails, because I've seen places where like, oh, I've got 8 emails from one brand because I was hitting different parts of the funnel. So be careful of that, making sure you're sort of monitoring that. And then on social or channels where you can, just make sure like your frequency doesn't go through the roof where you're like, you know, hitting somebody with the same ad every few posts.
All right, let's keep moving along here. There's another question. Currently, most of our customers are directed to our homepage, but I feel that the content is short and somewhat unengaging. Going back to the content question, what strategies or elements could we implement to make the homepage feel more personal and captivating for our visitors? Talk about PDPs. Let's talk about homepages. What can we do to make them
Great
happier?
question.
Don't send them to your homepage. I mean, sorry, just like build up
Thinking
5
that.
landing pages.
Mhm.
Take your traffic and drive them to, especially now if it's all direct traffic or if it's all SEO, like that's a different kind of issue. But I think try to carve off like, oh, here's this campaign, this group. Okay, let's make something that's unique to that customer. I think the other part, if you can't do that, break up and like you're still going to have your main hero that you're trying to capture everything else, and you can kind of componentize other parts of your site to get that person looking for those other messages so that it doesn't you don't want to end up, I think, with a super long homepage that you're trying to appeal to every visitor and try to get them to kind of click off.
I will note we've done some hot testing on scroll rates, and like returning customers will just go straight to where they need to go. But the new customers are the ones who scroll. So when you look at like 50% of people don't scroll beneath the main hero image, it's important to have relevant content for the people who are going to go beneath the main image about who you are as a brand, what do you stand for, third party, UGC, as seen on, that sort of thing. Like it's the first orientation for a lot of people on onto who you are. Now, having said that, we've also tested recommendation modules so that the products that are being shown are more relevant to whichever user, be it like if they're returning, most likely to click on newness versus like our best sellers for new customers. So I really think thinking of the homepage, I think a long homepage is not bad if the content on there is relevant to that user, but like make it easy for the people who don't care to just get where they need to go as fast as possible.
All righty.
I would
But I
say
agree,
that,
don't just send them there. If you can send them to different customized journeys, it's optimal.
if I can just tack on there, in my mind, I'm just kind of going back to like first principles, like what is the purpose of your homepage, and just keep that in mind. So for me, the answer to that question is, as a customer, does this brand solve the problem that I have? And 2, get me off the homepage as quickly as possible. As in somewhere further into the site.
Yeah, we were having that same conversation yesterday, funny enough, Toby, about like thinking of the homepage as almost like the Google search result page. Like where Google's mission gets you to click. I mean, they want you to spend almost as little time as possible, right, on that page. Go to the site, find your result. And we were thinking, well, what if we started to treat our homepage like that? Considering, like you were saying, Celia, so much of the returning, like direct track, of course, are returning customers. So giving them a recommendations module, simplifying the thing, get them to where they need to go as fast as possible, and then have custom landing pages for the new guys. So anyway, we're going to start testing.
Sounds good. We are at the top of the hour, and if I could just beg an indulgence from you to ask one last question, as I'd love to wrap up with this. I was going to ask it of you anyway, but Kat Singh has asked another question, and I want to give her a second chance at this. It's just very simple. Given the extensive experience of all the panel members, what is your top advice for excelling during the holiday period? What is your top advice? Could be anything. Let's just open this wide up and get crazy in our old age.
Bourbon.
Bourbon is
That's why I said
seems to be a theme.
No.
I'll throw up the war room.
Yeah.
War room and a daily stand-up where everybody fires through of like, what are my issues?
Yes.
I need help. I'm having problems, or I'm seeing stuff take off. Give me more.
Yeah, but a real war room. You talked about that during the speaker call, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's if you don't have anything, you don't have an immediate problem that needs to be taken care of. This isn't about amening anyone else or talking about stuff that's working. You're there to identify quickly what's going on. I love that.
And it's everybody in the company. It's not just marketers. It's dev. It's creative. If you have a bigger team, you have somebody on call that like, okay, I'm in the room here. So if somebody needs to do a quick change, that can be done. So it's kind of like speed of implementation.
Yeah, I love that. We do that too. And I think it's not just technical, it's marketing. So like also opportunities around messaging or promotion. The only thing I would add is like, if you start your promotion early and are running through Black Friday, note that like returning customers will buy day one, but new customers are often, or prospects are waiting to see what all the offers are. And if there's additional Black Friday offerings. So hold your nerve and don't panic until Black Friday. And then remember that like if somebody bought, they will buy again too. So like continue to remarket to people who might have already made a purchase. But yeah, it's I've fallen for that a couple of times where you're like, oh, they're not going to buy, and then on Black Friday it like comes through again.
Come back again. I'll give one more besides bourbon, Alan, if I can.
Oh, please do.
All right.
Whiskey.
Which is just that I think if I've learned anything is that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to miss something for as much prep work as you put in over the next 60 days, right? It's going to happen. So if you can think about now how to carve out space and ensure that your team has the bandwidth, the physical time to actually address things that are going to come up, it'll save you a world of hurt. That would be a big piece of advice I give to anybody who's new to Holiday. Just carve out some time.
I'd throw in early preparation, which sounds like all of you are doing, and then clear escalation paths. And I think also coming back to one thing that Toby said in his initial presentation was they're humans, they're people. Like, be nice to your teams, encouraging them. It's a grind for everyone. Give them the technology and the tools and the support that they need to make sure it's a success for everyone in the business.
Yeah, I would say, just to latch onto that, be serious about your goals, but also be kind to your people, right? Like, we're here to win. Everybody's here to win in their own business. But come January, don't have burned any bridges with the people on your team, right? Like, this is like, leadership is proven in times like this when everybody's under pressure.
Yep, a little bit of consideration, thoughtfulness, and maybe a couple of extra thank yous for the effort, I think, go a long way when people are under stress. All righty. And with that, I think we're going to call this a wrap. Toby and Apply Digital, thank you so much for all the work and that you put in, and thank you for sponsoring the webinar. Angie, thank you for your perspective from Commerce Tools. Jason, Matt, Celia, again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy days. And I know you've got nothing to do. So it's really nice having all of you here. And Celia, thank you so much for that Cashmere. Someone's going to be very, very happy here in about a half an hour.
Oh, nice.
And I also want to thank Justin Emming for giving us his video question. If anyone wants to participate in those, you can email me at Alan@Commerce Next, and we can see if we can get one of you to record one. That's for retailers only. And with that, I think we'll call it a day. Everyone, go out and enjoy your day today. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you on the 25th. Take care, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.